It's a very special day on the WBGO Journal. We are joined by Tony Award winner, multi-Grammy nominated singer, actress, Newark's Art High School graduate, the marvelous Melba Moore. Great to see you.
Oh, thank you for having me, Doug.
You're out with a new album, Imagine, and it's receiving a lot
Yes.
of attention, including the title track being Soultracks Song of the Year. Congrats on that album.
Yeah, I thought that was a nice Christmas present for me.
Absolutely. And before we talk about that and your recent presidential honors and your amazing career, I would like to start off. Obviously, we're based here in Newark, to talk
Right.
about this young girl who was born in Harlem and moved with her mom to Newark and started to sing arias and form a blues instrumental group at Arts High School in Newark. Did you know at that time that you had the goods to be a star?
Oh, absolutely not. But my mother was a professional singer and performer. My natural father is Teddy Hill. And of course, he was responsible for running Mitten's Playhouse and kind of helping issue in modern jazz and bebop. And he was very popular with a big band. So it's in my DNA. When my mother met and married my stepfather, Clem Mormon, he was from Newark, but he was a musician, a keyboardist, and they worked together. So music was the center of our lives. And we lived on Rose Street, in case anybody wants to know, across from Woodlawn Cemetery. But music was the center of our lives. I now, instead of being an only child, I had a sister. Eventually, I wound up having three brothers, aunts, uncles, cousins. That's your first community. And they were all musicians. So it wasn't a matter of wanting to be a star. It's just being immersed in music. And then discovering maybe really, really late, it was in my DNA. So I had I started out as a public school music teacher. So I was already always involved with music. And then it continued into, I want to do what you do, mother and daddy. I want to get on the stage and have some fun. So my stepfather helped me get into the industry. And I just wanted to be in the industry. I wasn't looking to be a star.
What's interesting about that is that it may have been in your DNA, but it doesn't mean that you're going to necessarily reach high levels because of what's around in the house and things, but it can help. Was there anyone at Arts High or Montclair State University who guided you to pursue a career in entertainment?
Absolutely. First of all, Arts High is probably at least one of the premier um, schools academically, period, in the country and in the world. And all you do is perform. I started a band there because I loved playing the piano. I thought, well, maybe I'll be a piano player, but you just love music so much and it's instilled in you and everybody's playing and performing and you're just encouraged to do that. Not necessarily, I guess you dream of being a star because that's just natural. And you hear people on the radio and you see people on TV, and America's the place where it happens. It's just all around you, but you just want to be in it. I think. I don't think I had an idea really what a star was. It's just like, for instance, at a young age, I don't know if you know what a star is, but you're enamored with them. You're in love with them. You're immersed in them. So I don't know how to answer your question.
I think you did, though. You're receiving a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame next year. Does that honor change anything for you?
Absolutely, it does, because it makes me stop and think about, first of all, when I go to receive it, what in heaven's name am I going to say? Because I'm absolutely stunned, amazed, and had no thought or plan of this ever coming into my life. So I'm not sure. So I have some time now. It's not going to be until 2023 to think about it from other people's perspective, because they're the ones that make it happen. And maybe for one to get out of my bubble as a performer, which I enjoy so much, and think about what does it mean to people who have supported you. I mean, I could say fans, but I want to think of it in a more human way, because fans kind of think it seems like a group of people that are on this side and you're on this side and you relate to each other that way. Now I'm going to try to see if I can switch places and see what I would think if I was watching somebody else do this and I was a fan, how would I feel? What would I want them to do representing me as their fans, as somebody that supported them? So I got to kind of get out with this time that I have, spend more time with the people who are not performers and talk with them and see what their thoughts are. Then I'll get a better view of what it is they see in me, because I don't get it.
Well, talent, shines through, and whether it be from the genes or from just growing up, and to say you're a trailblazer is an understatement. And you mentioned that your Hollywood Walk of Fame ceremony will be in 2023, and 2023 marks the 55th anniversary of the musical Hair, in which you became the first African-American actress to take over a leading role from a white actress, that time Diane Keaton. Then Miss Moore's historic Tony win in 1970 for Pearly, which she became the first African-American actress to win in that category for Best Female Lead Actress. And this year marks the 50th anniversary of the summer TV variety series on CBS with Clifton Davis, the Melba Moore Clifton Davis Hour. You became the first African-American female entertainer to go on and host a television variety show. Female entertainer, first one to host a variety show. Have you thought about that now with the Walk of Fame coming up? Just what an impact you have had on others, and the pressure. Did you feel any pressure at those times?
Pressure all the time, and always being stunned and amazed and overwhelmed. And now that so much time has passed by, I've got to calm down, get myself together, and kind of assess. Well, of course, it's easy by comparison to some other things I think you're responsible to think about how it's impacted me and how incredibly blessed and just lucky, if you want to say, that I've been, because so much of it seemed to have been an impulse and timing. Not planning. I didn't have managers or anybody. Matter of fact, my parents, who were performers, said, Melba, we want you to teach school. We want you to have a real job. Don't do like we did. So there was really no physical encouragement. So, but now I can look back on these and say, well, wait a minute, you must have some kind of instincts, and encourage people to look at that in themselves, because to have all this kind of accumulate into all these accolades and say, well, you were first this, first. Well, it had to be the time I came along, which I don't have anything to do with, but you can respond in a certain way. And so I would encourage people, because I'm not the only one who's had these kinds of accolades, and they won't necessarily get a walk of fame or some of the rewards I'm going to get now. Well, maybe they'll get them a little bit later because you don't know. And I would say, what I want to do now is, because I've been in this industry a very long time, but I don't want to stop. So I have to find out what is my next level. And I would encourage everybody to do that, because in a little while, it's going to be 2023. And everybody has to figure out, what are we going to do with this next brand new year that we never, ever had before, this new era with all these challenges that we have? How are we going to meet this personally with our own goals? And how are we going to participate in whatever community we find ourselves? I don't mean that as an accident, but you have to go so much by your intuition, your instincts, as well as your common sense to find out where you are now, so that you can find out what's going to be, what are you going to hold on to? And some things you have to get rid of. There's not going to be enough room for everything to go along with you in this next year, with all of these things that are coming into your life. So it's a brand new day, and with great responsibilities and great joys. I'm going to sit back. I'm going to leave time to sit back and relax, because when you're always under pressure, you can't really think. You have to you can't all be instinct. It can't all be luck. At some point, you have to be responsible for putting things in some kind of order. So that's what I'm going to do right now.
I have found that during the pandemic, artists like yourself have become more creative than ever. And in this case, it was your daughter, Charli, who helped you become a different sound to your music, a different singer, with Imagine. And those who are seeing the video will see that Charli's name's there at the bottom of your screen there. She was instrumental in putting together Imagine. Tell us about, first of all, your relationship and how she really inspired you to come up with this new sound.
Well, she's truly a mini me, except she's much bigger physically. And we are one, we have a very, very close relationship. We've been through lots of challenges and trials. Our family is broken up. I'm divorced from my now ex-husband. And so our relationship is, to me, it's very, what's precious in the sense that we're very careful because we understand through experience how fragile it can be. So over the pandemic, she said, Mommy, Uncle Bo brought these songs to me, and I think you should listen to them. Well, Uncle Bo is her dad's brother. That means he's my ex-brother-in-law. So we don't have like a close relationship. We're not at odds or anything, but we don't have, the structure's not the same. But she brought these songs to me one by one over the time that we had downtime. And they were all beautiful songs. And I thought, well, gee, they're great, but I don't know if they're right for me or anything. And I don't really, our team is not together the way it was before. So, but Bo and Charles, my ex-husband, have been the reason why I have all these incredible recordings that are still successful, still being played, that I still have new songs coming to me from other songwriters that are now charting. In other words, the reason why I still have a recording career besides taking care of my whole being is because the music that we put out years ago is still out there. So I said, well, I need to listen to them in this kind of a way. And so as I put them all together and I said, it sounds really wonderful, but and this sounds like a kind of a different person. This doesn't sound like what I usually sing like, although it sounds like kind of like the real me. It has another feel to me that probably I wouldn't have organized this way because I don't know myself that way. And I think what's important about that is nobody knows themselves from only looking in the mirror. You only know yourself from other people responding to you and you being in a community, so that you kind of help make each other what you are. And so I said, I'd like to consider this for an album project. And I said, well, but I'm not really with a label now. I'm doing a lot of independent projects. So I said, since you brought this to me, why don't you and I continue to organize this and turn it into a project? If it winds up, that's what it's going to accumulate into. And so I think this is a really good project because there is no pressure that you don't have to do anything. You do it if you want to. Well, you do it because you love, your daughter, and you want to see, what can happen out of that spirit. And once it came together, we decided, okay, you should be the spearhead of this project because guess what? It's more than likely time for me to pass the baton on. And so what better way to do it? And that's how it's coming about and still emerging or showing itself what it's going to be.
You mentioned in passing the baton. I'm curious, we talked about all the firsts for you. When you have an intimate conversation with Charli, have you talked about the impact that you've had on females in this business, females of color, and just what an amazing trailblazer you are? Have you had conversations, deep conversations with Charli about that?
We have deep conversations about that, but not that subject. It's who are we to our neighbor? What am I going to wear I'm in good shape so I could show my body. Do you want to do that? Do you remember though you are feeling really great that you're not a teenager anymore, and how are you going to receive that with yourself, and how you still have the opportunity to be in front of people? So the first thing I need to set an example for is my daughter. And she's very conservative in terms of what you look like. She would have me dressed like this all the time. She don't even want my shoulders showing.
Yeah, but it's styling. It's styling. You look
But
fabulous.
it's part of how you develop your style, but it's based on integrity in that you have the privilege of being in front of the camera and you have the microphone. So you can tell the story any way that you want to. What is it going to be based on? So now, of course, I do have the advantage of being able to look back and saying, okay, well, what did you think of when you did this album cover, you did that song? You know, how would you do that now? Because one of the things that happened during most of my successful recordings is I was married. So I had a husband to respect. I had a family to think of, not just what was I going to look like. And so that's how we, I think, answer the question, how do you represent Black people or women, period? Or how do you show integrity? How do you stand for something in what you do? I don't think we really talked about that in terms of my being such a heroine or anything, but I don't like that kind of thing. Yes, you're a mom now.
Yeah. Melba Moore was nominated for a Grammy Award in 1985 for her hit Read My Lips in the category of Best Female Rock Performance. She is one of only 3 Black singers ever nominated in that category. The others were Tina Turner and Donna Summer. Good company. Who through the years?
I see why I didn't win.
There you, but who have, you know, it might be those.
What company, right? That's incredible.
Yeah. Who have you loved to listen to through the years?
Well, you named 2 of them. Donna Summer is incredible and very versatile. She also started in the Germany company of hair, so she's an actress. Tina Turner is ridiculous. And now, of course, we've lived long enough to see her story on Broadway. So I can mention a lot of people that I listen to that are incredible, but you mentioned those 2. So I'll say what seems to be a true icon and someone that whose charisma and talent and just stick-to-itness takes them to all these eras. Because I guess maybe less than 10 years ago, you would not have seen the autobiography of any Black person on Broadway. This is a huge, huge breakthrough. And I think Donna Summer's story was on there and was going to be as well. So we have come into another era because these people were not just talented, but they had integrity. I'm not saying they were saints. I don't know what their personal lives were, except what we hear in the media. But they never, ever, ever gave up. They never stopped. That we were always so. I mean, imagine doing a duet with Barbra Streisand. Like, it makes me laugh to think of the iconicness of it. I don't know what to say.
Yeah. And, you know, since you mentioned Broadway again, let's go back to 1970 and Pearly, your historic Tony win. What do you think about when you think about that show? What sticks in your memory?
It seems to me it's a gospel musical. We have a whole genre of that nowadays. But it was about a preacher trying to get his church back. And of course, the music wasn't sacred music, but the story was about the centerpiece of the community, which I think, well, I personally believe that that's what it still is, and what part is part of what makes it stand up over time. But of course, the people who were in it, and let me speak about the person who cast it, Mr. Phil Rose. He was a person, he brought Sidney Poitier to Broadway. So someone had to open the door. Someone had to take all the brutality and the harshness of racism that he had to face in order to do that. I don't know if people remember who Diane Sands was. He brought her to Broadway in Alvin the Pussycat. I think she starred opposite Alan Alda. And you just didn't do this. So what I think about is people like Ozzie Davis and Ruby Dee. Ozzie wrote that so he could have a place to do on Broadway, that somebody like Phil Rose would partner with him and go through all of the agony that it would take to break through the racism that was there, keeping that from happening. If that hadn't happened, I wouldn't be following the great Miss Ruby Dee. That's what I think of. Because now you see me acting stupid and silly because I'm a fan too. And that I understand about fans, that kind of love and excitement never leaves you. Now, I don't remember what I said at the Tony Awards because I think I was too devastated to say anything. But I remember how come it happened, because the door was open for me to go and see if I could do that, because I had just come from the hair. So I really didn't have, yes, I was in lead in hair. But when I met with Phil Rose, he said, don't tell anybody you did that play. It's not a real play. So it had no credibility in the theater world at that time. It's now we understand what it is. So when I think about what was on my mind at that time, I was trying to learn how to audition. One of the girls in hair told me, she said, Melba, you really didn't get this show through auditioning, which I didn't. I got it through a record session day. And they invited everybody who was on the recording session to come and sing for the director and producer. And Jim Rado and Jerry Ragney liked me. Jim told me later he liked my personality. He was in the studio doing the music from Hair, being recorded by Galt McDermott, who wrote all the music for it. Jim and Jerry were the stars, and they wrote the book and the lyrics for all of the music. So they kind of got to know all the people on the date. Valerie Simpson was on the date, but she said, Broadway don't pay no money. I'm going to make some money. I'm going to go sell my songs. So she didn't bother to audition for it. But I said, hey, if I get in there, they're going to teach me how to act while I'm on the stage. And I'll just be doing bits and pieces here. And that's what I thought, why I would go up and try to do hair. But I was trying to learn how to audition for Pearlie, because after I had finished, I was still in hair, and she was reminding me that I had already been in the show for 1.5 years, and that wasn't going to last forever. Now that I was on Broadway, I needed to learn how to stay on Broadway, which means you have to learn how to audition. So she told me all the information. I went and auditioned for Pearlie, and I got the part, and of course a Tony Award and a career. But those are the things I think about, how I got into it. And there was a process. It wasn't accidental, but it's not that I could have planned it. I didn't have a manager. I didn't know where you would go to audition if the girl in hair didn't tell me. I didn't know how you go about doing things. I didn't know that. So, but I still went and said, okay, well, let's go and learn. I still have that attitude. Let's go try something. Maybe we'll learn something.
Fabulous. I wanted to talk a moment about being awarded the Joseph R. Biden Lifestyle Achievement Award and the Presidential Volunteer Service Award for your work in improving urban communities, especially the second one when it talks about working in urban communities. Tell us about that passion.
I guess it comes from my stepfather and my mother, always reminding us that we needed to volunteer, we needed to take care of people who couldn't take care of themselves whenever we had an opportunity to. And they did that. They had friends who didn't have a place to stay, live with us in our home. There was always a spirit of community service developed in us at home. I have a sister and 3 brothers. And so we were all engaged in community service, and that stayed with me and stayed with the rest of my family. So whenever I could, I would take my little boom box, because I know they ain't got no sound system, to a women's shelter or someplace. And I know if I sing a song, they'll pay attention to me. And I know when we were growing up, when we were in high school and college, we would visit nursing homes and perform. So it comes from the home training.
So you have the ability to go on a trip back in time with Charli, and the two of you can go to any historical moment of the past. Where are you going and why?
A historical moment? Can I get some help from you, Charli? Where would you like to go? She wants to go back to a time. What year was that, if you remember? Late 80s, early 90s? She wants to go back to a time when I took her on these Black family reunion celebrations that we used to have in the major cities that had great number of populations, that was spearheaded by the National Council of Negro Women, who was headed by Dr. Dorothy Height. because there she met people like Coretta Scott King. Who else did you meet, sweetheart? Dr. Betty Shabazz, Shirley Caesar, Dr. Height was like her grandmother, and she would say, Charli, go get this, go get that. And she saw great speakers, and she saw great congresswomen and men. And she learned about Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday, and she went to a French bilingual elementary school. And when she went back, she was so inspired, she made them celebrate Martin Luther King's birthday. And there weren't really, I mean, you can count them on one hand, the many Black people that were in her class, but she was so inspired by it. And I encouraged her that she could do it in a way that was not blaming anybody for anything or not being unfriendly, but share the great heroes of history that we have that maybe you just don't know about. And she likes to go back to that time because she had a great time. We had great celebrations. We traveled all over the country. We met great important people, and gave her a sense of civil responsibility, but in a fun, exciting way.
Imagine that. Speaking of Imagine, the new album, what song in Imagine, because you take us through a range of emotions, you know, romantic and troubles and things. What song speaks to Melba Moore the most?
Well, I think the title song, because it says, imagine if peace ruled every street, no more hate, we could live in peace. And the music is very inspiring because it was written by Ronnie Harris, but it begins with this incredible, beautiful guitar solo by Eric Leon. And I think when you hear that first two notes, you're already in love. You don't even care who's singing it. and the way the lyrics are laid out, it just kind of enraptures you, and it's just so sweet and wonderful. Maybe that's why when I heard it, I said, well, that's lovely. Kind of like, is that me? I feel like it's my spirit, but that usually remains kind of private inside of you. I don't think that this was the first time that I had an opportunity to express it quite this way. Another song is So in Love. It is so romantic. I look into your eyes. What's the lyric? I can't think of the lyrics now. You got to listen to it because it's like it erases every amount of fear, any distress that you have. It just kind of washes it away, but it's just not fantasy. It's just like a beautiful place that you can be only with music. Can it take you there? That's what music does. Kind of a little paradise in your car or wherever you are. You haven't left the planet, but you're in another space, and it's very beautiful. Just the whole feeling of it. There's one song too, I think it's cut 4, that's called Take Her Picture Down. You can already tell what that's going to be about.
Get that X out of here.
Thank you. So it's spirited like I Still Am.
On the radio side of this interview, we will have some clips of those songs that Ms. Moore is talking about. So as we wrap up this extremely heartfelt interview for me to be in your presence is to know about the impact that you have made. And when we talk about the Hollywood Walk of Fame coming up in 2023, let's take your family out of this. Mm-hmm. Who would be the first person you would call to say, I did it. I'm on the Hollywood Walk of Fame?
That's a difficult one. I have a lot of things that come across my mind, I guess because I've been trying to train myself to try to prepare for this. Maybe one of my best friends who always encouraged me to, at least she's not legally part of the family, but now since, I guess because my family was broken in the beginning, I feel like everybody's my family. Because you kind of know what it's like not to have those members. And then when they're there, you kind of, or when they're potentially there, you sort of embrace them. So I would think one person would be Inez, my dearest friend. She passed away a couple of years ago. And she was like, we went to Montclair State University together. And she had me in this group called Voices Inc. And what we would do is historical kinds of songs. We sang Negro spirituals, we sang different songs that kind of told a little vignette of Black history. But I was so shy. She literally pushed me on the stage and encouraged me and was always telling me things to think about and focus on, to encourage me not to sit back and, because I mean, yes, I jumped out and I got into show business and everything, but I didn't really jump out. Someone was always coddling me and holding me and carrying me, like my father, like friends, like different people, like my mother encouraging me. I never did it on my own or by myself. There was always someone there to help me. So maybe I'll also say to this one person who was one of my first managers, Bobby Bernard. And I said, you know, they're doing Hello Dolly. And I have a lot of friends that are in it. Why don't you send me up for it? He said, well, you don't know how to act. You don't know how to do that. But he did get me started in the Catskill Mountains. And I worked with my own bands and everything like that. And since I was, you know, a music major, I knew how to do that. But I would say, okay, Bobby, what are you going to say now? I have a Tony Award.
Final question for you. As you know, WBGO is the world's greatest jazz station. What do you want to say about jazz?
Jazz? Oh my goodness. So innovative, so unique, so American, so alive and still evolving. And it just, it spawns incredible musicians, because it seems like it's a combination of study and practice and innovation and developing of your own personal creative style. And gosh, there's several different kinds of jazz. I'm sure that you can say their names, but the field of jazz has its own identity, just as R&B does, just as rock does, just as classical does. But and it has such a beautiful field, because the Europeans helped us develop it and always embraced us in spite of racism that we experienced here. Go listen to it, because it speaks for itself. I don't know what to say. It's just incredible and so American.
Do you remember the first time you were at a jazz club?
Yeah. I think I sneaked out without my parents' permission and went to Minton's Playhouse.
Good spot.
And oh my goodness, the musicians that you would hear there. And I remember, and I also Birdland. I think I saw Dinah Washington there.
Wow.
You're making me remember things that make my eyes get big. Can you imagine sitting in the audience with her and you're like 18 or 19 years old? You see this commanding, dark-skinned woman with this incredible jazz musicians singing "What a Difference." I can't sing it like her. Dave Mace.
Wow.
Or Miss Sarah Vaughan, and that, I mean, her voice was deep and full, but then she would go up into this high, like classical voice.
So we've come full circle. You talked about Sarah Vaughan. So, you know, your roots in Newark are strong. Your roots in history, even stronger, and your roots in music, you know, just can't be matched in many ways, from being a Tony Award-winning actress to being an incredible performer. And so, first of all, I want to thank you for spending some time with us. Congratulate you on the upcoming Walk of Fame, Hollywood Walk of Fame next year, all your presidential honors, and all these anniversaries of these firsts for you. And I also want to thank your daughter, Charli, because you are still styling, lady.
Thank you. Yes, Doug. Thank you for having me. Thank you.